I am going to share with you some information about an important math standard for 4th grade students. This standard requires students to use decimal notation for fractions with denominators of 10 or 100. For example, students are able to rewrite the decimal point 0.62, also known as 62 hundredths, as the fraction 62 over 100. Another example is students being able to describe a length as 62 hundredths of a meter. A final example is students being able to locate a decimal such as 62 hundredths on a number line. This standard means that your child will be able to convert or change decimals into fractions and fractions into decimals. This is the first time that your child will be introduced to decimals. They do this by relating decimals to fractions that they have been working with. They start using a place value chart to understand the value of the tenths and hundredths place, such as in money. They learn how to write fractions that have a denominator or bottom number of 10 and 100 as decimals and vice versa. This is important for your child to make the connection that a number can be represented as both a fraction and a decimal depending on how and when they encounter the number. In later grades, they work in depth with decimals. In the following slides, there are some examples of what mastery of this standard could look like. One way students can demonstrate mastery of this standard is by being able to convert or change decimals into fractions. Students will need to have an understanding the value of tenths and hundredths. A decimal with a value in the tenths place can be rewritten with a denominator of 10. A decimal with a value in the hundredths place can be rewritten with a denominator of 100. Another way your student can demonstrate success with this standard is by being able to represent a decimal number on a hundreds grid. The two examples show 44 hundredths and 97 hundredths modeled on a hundreds grid. Think of the entire grid as representing one whole or $1 in the case of money, while each square represents 1/100th or 1 penny. Another important skill students must have to be able to have success with this standard is to be able to write numbers in decimal form. In this example, students represent 2/10 as a decimal number. Students also need to be able to read decimal numbers as fractions. For example, students should be able to read 0.1 as 1/10. Students also should be able to locate decimal numbers on a number line. This number line shows 0 to 1 whole on a number line. Tenths are represented in both fraction and decimal form. There are many ways to support your child's understanding of decimal numbers at home. One way is to relate decimals to money, because money is counted in tenths and hundredths. Think of 1/10 as 1 dime and 1 penny as 1/100th, or 2 dimes and 1 penny as 21 cents, or 21 cents as 21 hundredths. Another way to support this standard at home is to practice reading decimal numbers correctly. Start by saying the whole number, and for the decimal point, then read the rest of the numbers followed by saying the place value of the last digit. For example, 2.48 is read as 2 and 48 hundredths. Finally, you can support understanding of this standard at home by creating number lines and placing fractions and decimals in the correct locations. Thank you for supporting your students' learning at home.